Hi there. We're continuing our discussions on Budget 2019, and we're picking up from our very first episode where we had former Minister of Housing and Water and Tourism, and also the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Irfaan, and also Ms. Pauline Sukai, Member of Parliament of the PPP. In this episode, Mr. Ali is returning to provide some more details on certain aspects of Budget 2019, which is to be debated come December 3, Monday, December the 3rd, in the National Assembly. Mr. Ali, let me welcome you once again. When we look at the budget, the overall figure of $300.7 billion, some $30 billion in excess of 2018, higher than 2018. People will say, hey, with $30 billion increase, there must be something good here for a lot of people.
Well, yes, first of all, thank you once again for having me on the program, and to all our viewers on Facebook and our viewers nationally, let me thank you for your time also. Now, you asked a very interesting question, $30 billion more. Right. But you know, when I was going to St. Stanislaus College, one of my teachers always told me that when somebody's bluffing, they write a lot. They try to hide things, so they write a lot. So this minister stood up for 5 hours, and he spoke a lot. And then he said that there is a $30 billion increase in the budget. Well, let us go beyond the bluff. Let us go beyond the fluff and see exactly where this $30 billion is, and whether this $30 billion is going to bring benefit to the ordinary Guyanese or improve the economic prospects of our people. And I want to address this issue directly. Now, $30 billion increase from last year. Guess what? Employment costs, this is where the money is. And I'm going to account for 55% of the $30 billion. So the viewers can have an understanding of where more than half of the $30 billion, almost $17 billion out of the $30 billion is being spent. Employment costs. Since 2014, when this government came to office, employment costs grew by 69%. 69%. In 2019, employment cost is going to grow by another 19%. 19%. Field and materials. What is field and material supply? Field and material supply is long boots, raincoats, umbrellas, and things like this that the government would use when they go out in the field. A 62% growth in allocation for field materials from 2014 to now. In 2019, it is expected to further grow by 12%. 62% increase from 2014 to now. So you have field increase in umbrella, long boot, raincoats purchased by the government. Then you have print and non-print material. This is the purchase of magazines. This is the purchase. This is the purchase of magazines and newspapers and these kind of things. Print and non-print material.
Before you go on print and non-print, let's come back to the employment costs. You're saying there is an increase in employment costs.
Yes.
Could that not be seen as an increase in jobs, creation of jobs, so there's more people to pay?
I'll come back to the detail, but if you look at the employment costs, right, it's the bloating of the public service. It's the recurrent, and who are they employing? Look at the statement by Vola Lawrence. A deliberate attempt now just to employ party people, to give party people a job. Right? It's not employing people that would contribute to the efficiency of government, that would contribute to the expansion of the economy or creation of wealth, or in any new sector that is going to open up new opportunities for Guyanese. Right? If you run a business, and you only need you need 5 employees, but you employ 25. If you have a new department or a new source of revenue, then you justify it. Right? But you can have waste. You can also have waste in the process. I'm just accounting for the $30 billion, right? Now, let's go to print and non-print material. Print and non-print material, which includes the purchase of newspapers and magazines, has increased by 21%. It is projected to increase by 21% in 2019, or 53% increase since we came to government, since this government came to power when compared to 2014. So from 2014 to now, employment costs grew by 69%. Field material, which is purchase of umbrella, long boots, and so on, grew by 62%. Print and non-print material grew by 53%, projected to grow by 21% in 2019. Fuel and lubricant. Fuel and lubricant grew by 25% from 2014 to now. 25%. And this is an account of the luxury lifestyle that the government is living, the purchase of tons of new SUVs and so on. It is projected to further grow by 12% in 2019. You will note on this, you will note that the Auditor General has raised concerns in his 2017 report of $139 million not being accounted for in Region 1 alone in terms of fuel. Then you go to rental of buildings. Rental of buildings grew by 104%. 104% when compared to 2014. The increase in rental of buildings since this government came to office grew by 104%. It's expected to grow by a further 20% in 2019. A further 20% in 2019. So at the end of 2018, we're spending almost $900 million on the rental of buildings. We're spending almost $700 million on the purchase of newspapers and magazines and so on. We're spending almost close to $720 million, on the purchase of umbrella, long boots, and raincoats and so on.
All right, let me interject here. If the government people who are looking at this program will say, Mr. Ali, printing material by government is a way of informing the populace, educating the populace, bringing them up to speed with government's programs and policies and all of that, which is a requirement. How would you respond to that?
Print and non-print has two aspects. One is the purchase of magazines and newspapers and so on. Now, there's a lot of waste and hiding of it. In 2014, this very government said when we were in government that we are spending elaborately on GINA. You were there, you were working at GINA, that we were overspending on GINA. And they cut the budget for GINA. Can you remember that? The GINA budget was cut, right? And GINA was the outfit that sends out government news. This has nothing to do with NCN. There is still huge budget provision for NCN. There is still huge budget provision for DPI.
Okay, so this is outside of that.
This is outside of that. This is not the information realm of government. This is outside of NCN, outside of DPI.
All right, on the other issue of long boots and umbrella, could that not be seen as a mechanism to ensure safety of those who have to go into the fields?
I don't know. Every year you have to increase it, and it increased by 62%. We don't know. So can you justify that you need a 62% increase in allocation for long boots and raincoats and these things and field material? How can you justify that? So it is a bloating of expenditure.
Okay, but you're not against this safety mechanism aspect?
No. These are that is why I'm comparing it to 2014, Mr. Subban. Okay. Because that is the base here I'm using. Since we left government, this head has increased by 62%, and it's projected to increase by another 12% in 2019.
So it'll be a 74%,
right?
Overall.
So then let's go to local travel and subsistence. And this local travel and subsistence is the payment of airfare, hotels, and meals. These are the items that are normally funded under this head. From 2014 to now, it has increased by 71%. By 71%, it has increased by from 2014 to now, or $1.005 billion increase in local travel and subsistence. So you're talking from when we left government to now, an increase of 71%. It's projected to increase by 14% in 2019. Other transport and travel now. Now, this other transport and travel includes things like charter flight. When you take charter flight, there's a 60% increase from 2014 to now in charter flights. A 60% increase. And in 2019, it is projected to increase by 14%. Telephone charges. from 2014 to now, there is a 51% increase in telephone charges. And all of this is waste because it's a bloat of government, the excessive size of the government that is now eating up the resources. That is why we made the point that recurrent expenditure is outstripping capital investment. Capital investment is what creates infrastructure, expand infrastructure, and create opportunities for the government. But we have a situation now where current expenditure is outstripping all other investment by the government.
Now, you were in government once. You held various portfolios. Government would say, look, we have a responsibility to meet with our constituents, to meet with all Guyanese across the length and breadth of the country. So there's a need for travel. So we cannot be accused of not interacting with our people.
Yeah.
Could that be a possible explanation?
Yeah,
for
we were in government. We were in government, but we didn't increase chartered flights by 51%. Why? What is so hard of taking the commercial flights? We didn't hire private jets to jet around the place, right? So you can meet the constituents. For a matter of fact, we had massive outreach all over the country. We had cabinet outreaches where the entire cabinet went to various regions, right? But look at what is happening. It's the lifestyle. You have to look at the lifestyle and the nature of the expenditure. Hotel and accommodation. You can eat food that is valued $1,000, and you can eat food that is valued $20,000. That is the difference. You can go on a commercial airline, or you can go on a chartered flight. That is the difference. That is where the waste is. That is where the waste is. You can stay. You can go to a region and stay in a normal local hotel, or you can stay to a higher version hotel. Stay at a higher version. It's how you spend the resources. It's where the resources is allocated. How the resources is wasted. You can go to region 7 for an outreach, for example, and go with 3 persons. 3 persons. Or you can go with a whole party machinery. And this government is pointing to that. You can go with 40 persons. They can take a whole truckload of people, because you're going to use the government resources to finance the activity. So that is the difference. That is where the waste is. That is where the political the political input is. And I'm showing you here. So when you look at this $30 billion, look at it this way. Look at it this way, Niaz. How would the 51% increase in telephone charges benefit the ordinary person in this budget? How would it benefit the ordinary person? The ministers and the government is not calling every citizen and find out what problem you have. You have any problem? Tell me your problem. That is not what the telephone charges is being used for. So it is a segmentation of the expenditure and a concentration of the expenditure, right? And that is why I'm saying the minister had a lot of fluff in his presentation. He was hiding the reality. And I'll come with some of how he hides reality, because I want to address some of that if we have the time also today. So I just spoke to you about telephone charges. Electricity charges. Electricity charges, since this government came to office, has increased also tremendously. In 2019, it's projected to increase by 6%, an additional $176 million. This is against the fact. This minister told us that electricity charge, the government is investing in green energy, and they have solar panels on a lot of ministry, and the electricity cost is reducing for government. In his budget speech, he made a claim of installing over 100,000 LED lights, 1,000 motion sensors and solar panels on 90 government buildings in 2018, producing in excess of 1,942 kilowatt of solar energy. The Minister of Finance said that they did all of this to reduce, and it was reducing electricity costs. Yet, electricity costs is increasing. So in his speech, he made the point, he made it look as if the Green government is reducing its expenditure on electricity costs. And then, when you look at the numbers, you see there is an increase in electricity costs.
Why you think there is that increase?
Well, it is obvious that the size of government, the bloat of government, the waste of government, waste is causing the increase. But the big issue here in Yaz that you cannot miss is that the Minister of Finance, in his presentation, would want the population of Ghana to believe that electricity costs in government has reduced as a result of all these things that government did. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at the facts, it is far from the reality and far from the truth. There's an increase in allocation, and there's consistent increases in electricity costs for the government. Look at security. Look at what is happening with security. And this is government security. This is all the personal bodyguards for ministers and all the private security arrangement for ministers and so are paid under this line item. That's one category that is paid under this line item. And of course, you have an expanding cabinet, expanding list of advisors, and all of them have to be provided with these perks, these security perks, you know. And so security has increased by more than 84% since 2014. Direct relation to the waste because of our government, the expansion of the unwanted expansion of the cabinet and advisors and all these things. Everybody getting security and bodyguard now. You got some people moving around with a bodyguard, plus an assistant, plus a man to open the door, plus an assistant to carry tea for them. You know, it's ridiculous.
But
and security costs has increased by 84% since 2014, or $2.6 billion more. $2.6 billion more we're spending on security since 2014.
Some may ask, what's the difference, if you can explain that, in terms of when the PPP was in office?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. When we were in office, we went through office for 23 years. 23 years. There wasn't all these private bodyguards, all these assistants to you. You didn't have somebody traveling around with you to fetch your bag. You know, you didn't have all of this. You had basic security, which was provided by the special branch, and in some cases, private security services, which was catered for under the head. And that is why they didn't have these. And then you had a far smaller cabinet. You have an expanded cabinet now, almost time and a half the size. Plus, you have an expanded list of advisors to the government, all of whom are provided with these facilities. Then you have equipment maintenance, right? Equipment maintenance is projected to increase by 33%. 33% in 2019. They're requesting an additional $417 million in 2019 in relation to the maintenance of equipment. The government, if you look at this, the government intends to spend in 2019 2.3 times the amount it spent in 4 years on equipment charge. Equipment maintenance is going to increase by over 2.3 times what it was.
What kind of equipment we're talking about here? Excavators.
No. This is photocopying machine, computer, these type of machine, office equipment basically. Other purchase. Now, other purchase includes things like sponsorship, though very discretionary. Sponsorship, donation, advertisement, and so on, right? It increased by 191% since 2014. 191% since 2014. This head has increased, or it has increased by $3.4 billion. This is how this head has increased. 11%, an 11% projected increase in 2019. Okay?
So government will say, look, they have to advertise, they have to place ads in the newspapers and TV and radio and all those kinds of stuff.
As I said,
costs have gone up.
Don't miss the point. NCN, the DPI are also financed by government resources. Now you are in the media business. Have you seen a 191% increase in revenue stream from government? Let us take all the private media businesses here. Have they seen a 191% increase in revenue stream when it comes to government?
No.
So I'm just saying that it has increased by 191% since 2014. You ask any single cricket club out there, you ask any agency, any football club, if they see any massive increase in sponsorship by the government in any area of sports, and you will hear the reality. That is why I want to let the people of this country understand the reality of what is happening beyond the fluff and beyond the numbers. Now, national and other events. We don't have a problem with celebrating our national events, but you don't have to waste in celebration. You don't have to, and a lot of this goes in a very unaccountable manner. It's done in a political manner. It is done in a partisan manner, as if national events are owned by a political entity or a political party or a political movement. Now, national and other events. Since this government came to office, national and other, the budget allocation for national and other event has increased by 141%, yes. 141%. It is going to increase by a further 28% in 2019. Now, you are in the entertainment business, you are in the media business, you are a major name when it comes to national events, culture, and everything. Have you seen any massive increase that would justify a 141% increase in allocation when it comes to the celebration of any national event? Think about it. The ordinary persons can think about it out there also. This year, they're going to set aside $350 million for the Golden Jubilee celebration, right? $350 million. The population would be the judge as to what would be the nature of that celebration and whether there is any massive improvement or better way that they're celebrating.
Can I ask a question on that? That celebration is expected to be, well, it will be observed in 2020.
Yes.
Is there a reason, or am I to believe, or would Guyana have to believe, or are Guyanese to believe that some of this will happen prior to 2020?
Well, it seems so. It seems as if this is just part of the expenditure because 2020 will be the actual date, right? So, well, and a lot of this is the waste and what will take place in the political machinery. A lot of what is happening here. Dietary increased by is projected to increase by a further 20% in 2019. Since this government came to office, dietary has increased by $2.1 billion from 2014 to now. Dietary is what for senior staff and ministers, refreshment, food, and so on, are financed under dietary for senior staff and ministers. An increase of how can you justify this? How can you justify spending $2.1 billion more on dietary since 2014? And then you're going to spend 20% more in 2019 on dietary. Now, if you look at some other, so let me just quickly go over. On employment costs, field material, print and non-print, fuel and lubricant, rental of building, maintenance of building, local travel and subsistence, other transport and travel, telephone charges, electricity charges, security, equipment maintenance, other purchase, national and other events, and dietary. This government is spending 55% of the $30 billion increase. Would any of these items change the living condition of the ordinary Guyanese?
Well, I'm sure the government will respond to you during the debate to say, well, look, those expenditures are necessary.
Well, I have just outlined to you how wasteful it is in many cases and how bloated it is in many cases. So the government would have to respond. But I'm saying to you that the government wants you to believe that there is a $30 billion increase in budget, and this $30 billion is going to do miracles in the economy. I'm now showing to you where, I'm showing you, sorry, where 55% of that expenditure is going, and I'm asking the question, is any of this 55% going to improve the economic prospect of the ordinary Guyanese? Is going to improve the economic outlook of this country? Is going to improve our balance of payment situation? Is going to reduce our deficit? Is going to create opportunities? Is going to create jobs? Is going to create a better living condition for the ordinary Guyanese? No, it would not. It would not. It would never do it. So 55%, or it's almost $17 billion of the $30 billion is expenditure that would not improve the well-being or welfare of the ordinary Guyanese people.
So in reality then, based on your analysis, just about $13 billion basically out of that 30 is there now available to do, to do other things.
Well, let me say this to you. The $30 billion points to what we've been talking about, and all these private commentators are saying, even the IMF warned, the IDB warned, about the size of government. We are having a bigger and bigger government. The $30 billion in central government expenditure in 2019, recurrent expenditure is expected to take up 19%. 19% recurrent expenditure is going to take up. Okay? Sorry, 19 billion or 64%. So you're only left with $11 billion. And this is where the fluff is. The minister announced all kinds of massive infrastructure projects. But the reality is that you only got $11 billion. Out of the $11 billion, half of it is recurrent project that is coming forward from last year to now. Like the airport, the road, the Mandela Road, and so on. Citizen security program. So nothing new. There will be no new investment. There will be no new capital transformative project. There is no new transformative project under the capital program that is going to create opportunities. Nothing new. All bluff. All fluff. There is no massive improvement in any sector because the money is going in a wasteful way to a bloated government system. What is happening on the other hand? Let me give you one other example of where the government the minister contradicts himself. He wants you to believe that there will be reduction in property taxes. Remember the minister says one of his measures, there will be a new scale for the reduction of property taxes. And on the other hand, guess what is happening? There will be a revaluation of property. So if you're calculating 1% on 40 million, right? And you say you reduce it to 0.5% on 40 million, but then you increase the value to 80 million of the property. So you pay 0.5% on 80 million and you are paying 1% of 40 million. Is it better? You're in the same position.
But you can argue that the valuation will take a time to get done.
No. But if it's taking a time, if it will take a time to get done, right? They said it will happen next year. It is not a benefit to the people. That is where the bluff is. He announced the measure in property tax as if people will be paying reduced property tax. But when you have the increase in the valuation, the net effect is that you'll be paying the same thing or worse off. And guess what? I decided to examine the Minister of Finance numbers.
Which particular number are you talking?
Property tax.
Okay.
And guess what I found? Property tax in 2018 is expected to increase by a whopping 23%, or $840 million. That is in 2018. This Minister of Finance said that the net tax benefit or tax loss would be X amount as a result of the new property tax. But when you go to the numbers, property tax is projected to further increase in 2019 by another 100 million. It increased by 840 million in 2018. In 2019, when the minister said this beautiful measure is going to reduce the property tax and we're going to lose so much, when you look at the numbers, property taxes is expected to increase by another $100 million in 2019.
All right, we have a minute and a half.
And when you go beyond that, In 2020, it is expected to increase by a 4 to 32%. So let me say this to you. When you examine the numbers as against what the minister wants us to believe, it is a striking difference. The reality is completely different, and it carried me right back to my secondary school days, when one of my teachers taught me that when you see a man talking a lot on an issue, he's trying to bluff his way. Or that is why when you had short story, when you have to write a short story, they used to give you a word limit, right? They still give you a word limit, Niaz. That was a budget that tried to hide the reality, hid the reality, and create a false sense of optimism and hope. But when you dive into the numbers, when you dive into the reality, it is perhaps one of the worst. And not only that, the macroeconomic fundamental and framework is tremendously worrying for our people and for our country. And I wanted to go, but we don't have the time at all. I wanted to go through, I did the analysis here of all the promises of the Minister of Finance in 2018 and what is the reality. If you give me 30 minutes more, we can do this now. If you don't,
we have to do it on another program.
Then we'll have to do it on another program.
I'm sure you, because you will lead off the debates on Mondays, I'm sure a lot of that will be covered in your debate speech as well.
But we don't get a time. Remember, we are limited there. They're limiting us on Parliament, and now Niaz is limiting me on TV.
All right, let me thank you very much for joining us here on Budget 2019 discussions. Former Minister of Housing and Water and Tourism, Irfaan Ali. I'm Niaz Suban, thanking you for watching.
Thank you, Niaz.